"We can't come. Mom's fine. My wife is throwing a birthday party, and we can't just abandon our guests." Those were the exact words Isaac said to the doctor when he was told I was dying, literally dying. My heart had failed 3 times in the ambulance, and my 42-year-old son chose Morella's appetizers over his mother's life. I lay here, hooked up to machines that keep my heart beating, staring at the ceiling of this cold hospital room. It's 2 in the morning, and I'm completely alone. The heart monitor beeps erratically, reminding me that each beat could be my last. And my sons are 30 miles away, toasting with champagne. The smell of disinfectant mixes with the metallic taste in my mouth since I woke from emergency surgery. My hands tremble every time I try to move them. And it's not just the medication, it's the rage coursing through my veins like pure venom. "Mrs. Stone, please try to rest," whispers Fiona, the night shift nurse. She's a young woman, perhaps the age of my daughters-in-law, but her eyes hold a compassion I haven't seen in my own family for years. "The doctor said the most important thing now is for you to stay calm." Calm. How can I be calm when I've just discovered that to my children I'm less important than a party? Dr. Miller was very specific when he told me about the calls 2 hours ago. His words still echo in my head like hammer blows. I told them explicitly that this could be her last night, that the heart attack was massive, and that we needed them to come immediately. Benjamin's response was even worse than his brother's. "Doctor, she can't wait until tomorrow? Diana organized everything weeks in advance, and all the guests have already arrived. My mom is strong. She's always recovered from everything." I've always recovered from everything. That phrase reverberates in my head like a painful echo. I recovered when their father abandoned us 25 years ago, leaving me with 2 teenagers and mountains of debt. I recovered when I had to work 3 jobs to put them through private college, cleaning offices at dawn, waiting tables at a diner during the day, and sewing clothes late into the night. My fingers still bear the scars from the sewing machine. I recovered when I sold my house, that little green house with a garden where they grew up, to help Isaac with the down payment for his own. "It's only temporary, Mom," he had told me. "I'll pay you back in 2 years. That was 8 years ago. I recovered when I lent my life savings, $28,000 that I had saved penny by penny for decades, for Benjamin's business that never took off. It's a safe investment, Mom. In 6 months, I'll pay you back everything with interest." The business folded after 3 months. I recovered when Morella told me in front of the whole family at last Christmas dinner that my olive green dress wasn't appropriate for the occasion and that I should dress more my age. I recovered when Diana decided my Sunday dinners were too much work and that it was better to order takeout. I recovered when they gradually stopped inviting me to family gatherings because you know how Grandma is, always wanting to give her opinion on everything. But this is different. This time, it's not about lost money or ignored slights. This time, it's about something I can't recover, the knowledge that when it truly mattered, when my life hung by a thread, they chose to stay at a party. Dr. Miller had explained to me in a grave voice, "Mrs. Stone, you had 3 cardiac arrests during transport. The paramedics managed to resuscitate you, but you were technically dead for 4 minutes. It's a miracle you're here talking to me." 4 minutes dead, and my children were worried about not ruining Morella's pink party decorations. The door to my room remains closed. No worried calls in these 5 hours since I woke up. No text messages, just the constant sound of the machines keeping me alive and the echo of their words. "We can't. My wife is throwing a party." Fiona checks my vital signs every hour. "Your blood pressure is a little high," she says with genuine concern. "Are you thinking about something that's making you nervous?" If she only knew I was thinking about 66 years of unconditional love thrown away for a birthday cake and colorful balloons. At this moment, as I look at the city lights through the hospital window, something inside me is breaking definitively. And it's not my heart. It's something much deeper. It's the last drop of hope I had that maybe, just maybe, I still mattered to someone in this world. Tomorrow they'll call, I'm sure. They'll show up with cheap supermarket flowers and well-rehearsed excuses. They'll say they didn't understand the gravity, that they thought it was another one of my exaggerations, like when I fell and fractured my wrist last year, and it took them 3 days to come see me. But it's too late. Tonight, they've shown me exactly where I stand on their priority list, and that place is very, very low. I close my eyes and transport myself back 40 years. Isaac was 2 years old, and Benjamin had just been born. We lived in that small 2-bedroom house in the lakeside neighborhood, with walls so thin I could hear the neighbors breathe. Robert, my husband then, worked at the textile factory, and I stayed home taking care of the children. I remember perfectly the smell of baby powder and the sound of their giggles when I bathed them in that second-hand plastic tub we bought. Isaac was always the clingiest with me. "Mommy, Mommy," he would repeat all day, following me around the house on his chubby little legs. Benjamin was more independent, but when he got sick, he became my shadow, asking me to sing that lullaby I had learned from my mother. Everything for my children, I told myself as I sewed clothes until 3 a.m. to sell at the market on weekends. Every extra dollar went directly to their needs. New shoes when they grew, school supplies, Isaac's soccer classes, Benjamin's guitar lessons. I wore the same gray dress for 2 years straight, but they were always impeccable. The first sign that something was changing came when Isaac turned 25. He had met Mirella at his job, a calculating woman with a perfect smile and always immaculate nails. The first time he brought her to dinner, she examined my house as if she were evaluating a dilapidated property. "Cecilia," she said to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "don't you think it would be better if Isaac and I spent Christmas at my place this year? My family has deeply rooted traditions, and well, my mother is used to doing things a certain way." That Christmas, I ate alone for the first time in 25 years. The turkey I had bought remained untouched in the refrigerator for a week. When I asked Isaac how dinner had been, he replied, "It was amazing, Mom. Mirella's house is spectacular. It has a dining room that looks like it's straight out of a magazine, and the food, well, her mom is a really good cook." As if my 30 years of cooking for him had meant nothing. Benjamin followed the same pattern 2 years later. Diana was different from Mirella, more subtle in her manipulations. She didn't exclude me directly. She simply made small comments that accumulated like raindrops until they formed a puddle of insecurity. "Oh, Cecilia, how lovely your red sweater is," she would say with a condescending smile. "It's very vintage, isn't it? I always tell Benjamin that women our age need to update their wardrobes once in a while." Or when I prepared my famous lasagna, that recipe I had perfected for decades. "It's good, mother-in-law, although it's a little heavy for my digestion. I prefer lighter, more modern food. Benjamin has gotten used to my cooking style." Invitations to family dinners began to spread out. First it was, "Diana isn't feeling well and prefers something intimate." Then, "The kids have a lot of homework and need peace and quiet." Finally, they simply stopped inviting me. Linda, my lifelong neighbor, told me bluntly one afternoon while we were having coffee, "Cecilia, dear, your daughters-in-law are pushing you away from your sons. It's the oldest story in the book. I've seen this movie 1,000 times." But I refused to believe it. "They're good girls, Linda. They just need time to adapt to the family." "Adapt? They've been married for 5 years, Cecilia. They've already adapted. They've adapted you to be the grandma who shows up for emergencies and leaves quietly." She was right, but it hurt to admit it. I had started to feel like a stranger in my own children's lives. Phone conversations became mechanical. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "Good, us too. Well, we'll call you later. We're busy." The hardest blow came 2 years ago when I sold my house to help Isaac. Mirella had found her dream house in an exclusive neighborhood, but they needed $100,000 for the down payment. "Mom," Isaac said to me with that voice he used when he was a child and wanted something, "I know it's a lot to ask, but it's our opportunity. It's an incredible investment. In 5 years, this house will be worth double." I sold my little greenhouse, the one where I had raised my children, where their heights were marked on the doorframe, where they had taken their first steps. I moved to a small apartment in a building without an elevator, but they had their dream house. The first time I went to visit them in their new house, Mirella greeted me at the door with a tense smile. "Cecilia, what a surprise. You should have called first. We're expecting some friends for dinner." She didn't invite me in. I stood on the threshold of the house I had helped buy, feeling like a salesperson arriving at the wrong time. "I just came to bring you this," I said, handing her a chocolate cake I had made especially for them. It was Isaac's favorite since he was a child. "Oh, how nice. But you know we're trying to eat healthier. Isaac is being very careful after his high cholesterol scare." She held the cake as if it were contaminated. That night, I cried myself to sleep. My son had cholesterol problems, and I found out by chance through a conversation at the door of a house I had helped buy. With Benjamin, the situation was different, but equally painful. He had always been more direct, less diplomatic than his brother. When his electronics import business started having problems, he got straight to the point. "Mom, I need $8,000. It's to save the business. If I don't get them this week, I'm going to have to close and be in debt for years." It was all my savings, every dollar I had saved working at Dawn, every coin I had set aside from my pension for 10 years. But he was my son, my baby, whom I had carried in my arms for entire nights when he had a fever. "I'll lend it to you, my son, but I need you to sign a promissory note. It's not distrust, it's just to have everything in order." Diana was outraged. "A promissory note? Seriously, Cecilia, you're going to charge your own son interest? What kind of mother does that?" In the end, I lent him the money without a promissory note. "He's your son," I told myself. "He knows what that money means to you." The business folded after 3 months. The $8,000 vanished along with years of sacrifices and dreams of a dignified old age. Benjamin told me, "Mom, you know how these businesses are. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose." At least I tried. As if my money had been casino chips and not the result of decades of work. Now, connected to these machines in this cold hospital, I understand that all those moments were preparing me for this night when the mask finally fell and I could see the naked truth. To my children, I am dispensable. The pain had started 3 days ago during Sunday lunch at Isaac's house. It was my 66th birthday, although no one seemed to remember it. Mirella had prepared a light salad and grilled chicken, nothing like the celebrations I used to organize for them when they were children. "Mom, you look tired," Benjamin had said to me while picking at his food without looking up from his phone. "Are you sleeping well?" The truth was, I hadn't slept properly for weeks. A strange pressure in my chest woke me every night at 3 in the morning, as if someone were sitting on my ribs. But I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want them to think it was another one of my exaggerations, as they had started to call my ailments. "I'm fine, honey. Just a little heartburn at night." Mirella had let out a dry laugh. "It's just that at our age, the body doesn't process food the same way, Cecilia. I tell my mom she needs to eat lighter, fewer spices, less fat. A 66-year-old woman's body isn't the same as a 30-year-old's. That afternoon, as I was getting ready to leave, Diana arrived with news that broke my heart without her knowing it. "Guess what? We finally got a date for my birthday party. It's going to be this Wednesday at the Grand Plaza Hotel Ballroom. I've been planning it for months." Wednesday. My actual birthday had been on Sunday, but no one mentioned it. On Wednesday, they were going to celebrate Diana with all the pomp and circumstance in the world. "It's going to be amazing," Diana continued excitedly. "I hired the best catering service in the city. There's going to be live music, themed decorations, and over 50 guests have already confirmed. Benjamin gave me this gorgeous golden dress that cost $1,200. $1,200 for a dress, more than I spend on clothes in 2 years. I remained silent, feeling that pressure in my chest intensify as I watched my son smile proudly for having spent in one night what lasts me 6 months. "Mom, you're obviously invited," Benjamin had told me, but his tone sounded more like forced courtesy than real desire. "Though, you know, it's going to be an elegant affair." Diana invited many important people from her work. The message was clear. Come, but don't embarrass us. On Tuesday night, a day before Diana's big celebration, the pressure in my chest had become unbearable. My left arm ached, and I had nausea that made me double over in bed. I called Isaac at 11 at night. "Mom, what's wrong? We're watching a movie." "My son, I feel very sick. I have a chest pain that won't go away." "Did you take anything? Chamomile tea? Maybe it's stress. You've been very tense lately with Diana's party. Look, we'll stop by to see you tomorrow after the celebration." I hung up feeling more alone than ever. Even my pain had to wait for my daughter-in-law's party to end. That night, I couldn't sleep for a minute. The pain spread through my jaw, my neck, my back. It was as if a giant elastic band was tightening around my torso. At 5 in the morning, I called Linda. "My dear, that doesn't sound good at all," she said after hearing my symptoms. "I'm coming over and taking you to the hospital." "No, Linda, it's Wednesday. It's Diana's party. I don't want to ruin—" "Ruin what, Cecilia? You're describing heart attack symptoms. Do you think a party is more important than your life?" It turns out it was. It turns out that for my children, a party was more important than my life. Linda arrived at my apartment at 6 in the morning and found me sitting on the edge of the bed, sweating coldly and breathing with difficulty. "We're going to the hospital right now," she said, with that firmness that only true friends have. In the taxi to the hospital, the pain intensified to the point of being unbearable. It felt as if a knife was being plunged into the center of my chest and slowly twisted. I squeezed Linda's hand with all my might. "Hang in there, Cecilia. We're almost there." In the emergency room, everything happened very quickly. The electrocardiogram showed worrying irregularities. My blood pressure was through the roof, and the cardiac enzyme levels confirmed what the doctors already suspected. I was having a massive heart attack. "We need to operate immediately," Dr. Miller had told me as he prepared the gurney to take me to surgery. "Is there anyone we can call? Close family?" With a voice choked by pain and medication, I gave them my children's numbers. "Please tell them it's urgent, to come now." Linda stayed holding my hand until they took me to the operating room. "I'll stay here until you come out. My dear, you're not alone." But I was alone. As they administered the anesthesia, the last thing I thought about was my children getting ready for a party while I fought for my life. I woke up 6 hours later with Fiona checking my vital signs and Linda asleep in the chair next to my bed. My children were conspicuously absent. Did my children call? It was the first thing I asked, although from Fiona's expression, I already knew the answer. The doctor spoke with them during the surgery. He explained that you had 3 cardiac arrests, that the situation was critical, that they needed to come immediately. My heart, already weak, shrank even more. "And what did they say?" Fiona hesitated before answering. She clearly didn't want to be the messenger of this betrayal, but I needed to hear the whole truth. "Your oldest son said they were at a very important party, that they couldn't abandon the guests, that you had always been strong, and that they were sure you would recover." Tears began to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. It wasn't just the physical pain of the post-operative period. It was the pain of discovering that Diana's party, with its $1,200 golden dress and elegant appetizers, was worth more than all the years I had dedicated to raising them. "Your youngest son," Fiona continued softly, "asked if they could come tomorrow morning after the celebration ended." Linda woke up hearing my crying and immediately came closer to the bed. "My dear, what happened? Does something hurt?" "Everything hurts, Linda. It hurts to have dedicated my entire life to 2 children who prefer a party to knowing if their mother is going to survive the night." At that moment, staring at the hospital ceiling at 3 in the morning, while my children toasted with champagne 30 miles away, I made a decision that would change everything forever. The next 3 days were a roller coaster of emotions I never thought I would have to experience. Every hour that passed without a call from my children felt like a deeper stab in an already literally broken heart. Fiona had started to avoid my gaze when I asked her if anyone had called asking about me. On Thursday morning, 24 hours after Diana's party, the room phone finally rang. My heart raced so much that the machine started beeping alarmingly. It was Isaac. "Mom, how are you? We just found out you were in the hospital. Why didn't you tell us anything?" Blood rushed to my head. After everything that had happened, after the doctors had called them multiple times, he had the audacity to ask me why I hadn't told them anything. "Isaac," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, "the doctors called you on Wednesday. They told you I was dying and that they needed you to come immediately." There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. "Oh yeah. Well, Diana's party was very important. People had come from very far away. We couldn't just cancel everything. Besides, you've always been very strong, Mom. We thought it could wait a few hours." A few hours. My life could wait a few hours. "Mom, don't be dramatic. You're fine now, right? The doctors said the operation was successful. Look, we'll stop by to see you Sunday after lunch. Does that work?" Sunday, 3 days away. My first heart attack could wait until after Sunday lunch. I hung up without saying goodbye. Fiona, who had been pretending to organize medications to give me privacy, approached with a worried expression. "Mrs. Stone, your blood pressure just skyrocketed. Are you okay?" "No, Fiona, I'm not okay, and I don't think I'll ever be okay again." That afternoon, Benjamin arrived, but not alone. He was accompanied by Diana, who looked radiant after her successful celebration. She was wearing golden earrings that matched the dress she had worn to the party, and her makeup was perfectly applied. I, meanwhile, had greasy hair, a stained hospital gown, and tubes coming out of my arms. "Mother-in-law, how are you? You gave us quite a scare," Diana said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Benjamin told me what happened. What bad luck that it happened just on the day of my party, right?" Bad luck, as if my heart attack had been a planned inconvenience specifically to ruin her celebration. "The party was incredible, Mom," Benjamin told me as he sat in the chair furthest from my bed. "You should have seen the decorations. Diana really outdid herself. Over 60 people came, including Diana's boss and several important clients from my work." He was talking about the party while I had been fighting for my life. He was talking about the decorations and the important contacts they had made. "How are you feeling?" Diana asked me, but her tone suggested she expected a short, positive answer. "You look much better than we expected. Doctors nowadays work miracles, right?" "The doctors said I had 3 cardiac arrests," I told them, observing their reactions. "I was clinically dead for 4 minutes. Benjamin shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Well, but it's over now, Mom. The important thing is that you're alive and recovering." "The important thing," I repeated, feeling something inside me harden like cement, "is that while I was dying, you were eating appetizers and laughing with guests." Diana frowned. "Cecilia, it's not fair that you're making us feel guilty. We didn't know it was that serious. Besides, what were we going to do at the hospital? We're not doctors. It was better for us to be where we could be useful, organizing the party that had cost so much money and effort." Useful. Organizing a party was more useful than accompanying their dying mother-in-law. "Look, Mom," Benjamin interrupted. "Diana and I talked, and we decided we're going to help you more. We can stop by to see you once a week, maybe on Sundays after lunch. And if you need something urgent, you can always call us, as long as it's not during work hours or when we have important commitments." Once a week after lunch, if they didn't have important commitments. It was at that moment, looking at my youngest son talk to me as if I were a burden to be redistributed on his agenda, that something definitively broke inside me. It wasn't my heart. This time, it was something much deeper. It was the last shred of hope I had, that maybe somewhere, very hidden, there was still something of the love I had planted in them all these years. "You know what?" I said to them in a strangely calm voice. "You're right. You shouldn't feel guilty." Both visibly relaxed, thinking I had understood their point of view. "You shouldn't feel guilty," I continued, "because to feel guilty, you need to have a conscience, and you clearly lost yours a long time ago." Diana's expression changed immediately. "Cecilia, there's no need to be rude. We came here to support you, even though we have 1,000 things to do." "To support me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in my laughter. You came to fulfill the minimum social effort required to be able to say you visited your sick mother. You came so you could sleep peacefully, knowing you did your good deed for the day." Benjamin stood up, clearly annoyed. "Mom, you're being unfair. We just explained why we couldn't come earlier. Diana's party was important to us for our future. We can't cancel our lives every time you have a health problem." Every time I have a health problem. As if heart attacks were colds I caught regularly to get attention. "You're right, my son," I told him, feeling a strange calm take over me. "You can't cancel your life, and I won't ask you to ever again." Diana smiled, thinking she had won. "I'm glad you understand, mother-in-law. It's important that we all have healthy boundaries in family relationships." Healthy boundaries. That was an interesting way to describe emotional abandonment. They stayed another 10 minutes, talking mainly among themselves about their weekend plans, about a trip they were planning for next month, about a new rug Diana wanted to buy for the living room. I was just a silent spectator of their prosperous and busy lives. When they finally left, vaguely promising to return soon, I was left alone with Fiona and the weight of a revelation that was changing me completely. "Mrs. Stone," Fiona said to me as she checked my IV, "I don't like how you look. Do you want me to call someone else? Do you have other family members, close friends?" "I have Linda," I said, "and apparently that's more than I had with my own children." That night, as I listened to the sounds of the hospital and felt the throbbing pain in my scarred chest, I began to plan something I never thought I would have to do, something definitive, something that would show them the true cost of their decisions. That night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't just the physical pain that still pierced my chest like daggers, but a mental clarity I hadn't had in years. For the first time in decades, I was seeing my life without the filter of unconditional motherly love. I was seeing reality as it was, not as I had wanted it to be. I sat up in the hospital bed and asked Fiona for paper and a pen. "Are you going to write letters, Mrs. Stone?" She asked me with that sweetness I had come to appreciate more than the visits of my own children. "Something like that," I replied. "I need to put my thoughts in order." I began to write, and the words flowed as if they had been waiting for years to come out. It wasn't just a letter. It was a complete inventory of my life, an emotional accounting I had never had the courage to do. "Dear Isaac and Benjamin," I wrote with a trembling hand, "for 66 years I have lived for you. Every decision I made, every sacrifice I made, every dream I abandoned was with your well-being and happiness in mind. Today, lying in this hospital bed after having been clinically dead for 4 minutes, I finally understand that you have not lived a single day thinking about mine." Tears began to fall onto the paper, smudging some words, but I continued writing. I had 66 years of things to say. "When your father abandoned us, I was 35 years old, and you were 18 and 10 respectively. I was young, I was attractive, I had suitors who wanted to start a family with me, but I chose to stay alone, to dedicate myself completely to you. I didn't want any man to make you feel like you were a burden or that you were in the way. I sacrificed the possibility of having a partner, of having more children, of having a full love life, because you were my absolute priority." I remembered Mr. Douglas, the widower who lived across the street and who for years brought me flowers every Friday. He was a good, hard-working man who courted me with the patience of someone who understands the value of important things. But I always told him that I couldn't think about romance, that my children needed me. He married another woman 5 years later, and I continued alone, raising them. "I worked 3 jobs for 8 years to pay for your private college," I continued writing. "I cleaned offices from 4 to 7 in the morning. I worked at the diner from 8 to 4 in the afternoon and sewed clothes from 6 until midnight. I slept 3 hours a day from Monday to Saturday. Sundays I dedicated completely to you. I washed your clothes, cooked your favorite meals, helped you with homework, took you to the park." My hands started to ache, but I needed to write everything. It was as if, by putting it on paper, I was finally giving real weight to all those years of silent dedication. Isaac, when you married Morella, I sold my house to help you with the down payment for yours. That greenhouse where you grew up, where you learned to walk, where we spent the best Christmases of our lives. I sold it without thinking twice because you said it was your opportunity to have a better life. I moved to a one-bedroom apartment on a 4th floor without an elevator, but you had your dream house. I stopped writing for a moment to wipe away my tears. Fiona approached with concern. "Are you feeling well, Mrs. Stone? Your blood pressure is going up again." "I'm fine, honey. For the first time in years, I'm perfectly fine." I continued with the letter. "Benjamin, when your business was failing, I lent you my life savings. $28,000 that I had saved dollar by dollar for 10 years, working weekends until I was 70, selling food at the door of my building, saving every penny of my pension. It was my security for old age, my peace of mind to be able to get sick without being a burden to anyone. But you needed that money, and I gave it to you without hesitation." The irony hit me like a slap. I had spent my financial security so they wouldn't see me as a burden, and now they saw me as exactly that, a burden. "But none of this matters now," I wrote, feeling that each word freed me a little more. What has really killed me has not been the financial sacrifices. What killed me was discovering that on Wednesday, when I was fighting for my life on an operating table, you were toasting with champagne at a party. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to relive that humiliation once more. It was necessary to feel the full weight of that betrayal to be able to do what I had to do. The doctors called you at 2 in the afternoon to tell you that my heart had failed, that I had had multiple cardiac arrests, that the situation was critical. They literally told you, "This could be your mother's last night." And you replied that you couldn't come because there was a party. A birthday party with appetizers and live music was worth more than the life of the woman who brought you into the world. The words were becoming blurred by tears, but I continued. I needed to finish. Today, I understood something I should have understood years ago. You don't love me. Maybe you cared for me when you were children and needed me, but that feeling evaporated the moment you became independent. Now I am just an uncomfortable social obligation, someone to visit occasionally to keep up appearances. My hand trembled as I wrote the next lines, because I knew that once I put them on paper, there would be no turning back. That is why I have made a decision that will change our lives forever. I will not continue to live as a mother begging for crumbs of attention from children who see me as a nuisance. I will not continue to pretend that obligation visits and courtesy calls are enough for me. I will not continue to accept that my life has less value than a party, than a dinner with friends, than a busy weekend. I paused to catch my breath. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear I felt. It was liberation. When you read this letter, I will already be gone from your lives forever. Don't look for me. You won't find me. I have decided to start over, in a place where no one knows my story, where I can simply be Cecilia, not the abandoned mother who sacrificed herself for ungrateful children. Fiona approached again. "Mrs. Stone, it's already 4 in the morning. You should rest." "I'm almost done, honey. Just a few more lines. I am not making this decision out of anger, but out of self-love. The same love I gave you all these years, I will finally give to myself. I deserve to be surrounded by people who value my presence, who care about my well-being, who choose my company instead of tolerating it." I was reaching the end, and each word brought me closer to the freedom I had been unknowingly seeking. Don't expect me to come back. Don't expect a reconciliation. This is my definitive goodbye. Be happy with your busy lives, your important parties, and your clear priorities. I will be happy away from you. I signed with my full name, Cecilia Rosewood, your mother, until today. I carefully folded the letter and put it in the nightstand drawer. Tomorrow I would give it to Linda with specific instructions on when to deliver it. For the first time in days, I fell asleep without crying. On Friday morning, I woke with a strange feeling in my body. It wasn't the physical pain I had been carrying since the heart attack. It was something different, a mixture of nervousness and excitement I hadn't felt in decades. It was the feeling of being about to take control of my own life for the first time in years. Linda arrived early, as she had been doing every day since my operation. She brought a thermos of homemade coffee and that warm smile that reminded me that there were still people in the world who genuinely cared about me. "Good morning, dear. How did you wake up? You look different today, more peaceful." "Linda, I need you to do me a very important favor, perhaps the most important I've asked you in all these years of friendship." She sat in the chair next to my bed with a serious expression. "Tell me what you need, Cecilia. You know you can count on me for anything." I handed her the letter I had written during the early morning hours. "I need you to give this to my sons, but not now. Wait until Sunday afternoon after they come to visit me." Linda took the envelope carefully, as if she knew it contained something that would change everything. "What is this, my dear?" "It's my freedom," I said with a smile that even surprised myself. "And I need you to help me with something else. I need you to help me disappear." Linda's eyes immediately filled with concern. "Cecilia, what are you talking about? Are you thinking of harming yourself? Because if so—" "No," I interrupted her, taking her hand in mine. "I'm not talking about suicide, Linda. I'm talking about rebirth. I'm talking about starting a new life far from here, far from children who don't value me, far from this city where every corner reminds me how much I've given and how little I've received in return." I explained my complete plan. For the past few hours, I had been thinking about every detail, as if my mind had been waiting for years to plan my own liberation. "I have money saved in an account my children don't know about," I told her. "It's not much, but enough to start. It's $8,000 I've been saving from my pension for the last 3 years after Benjamin lost my savings in his failed business. I have it at the National Bank in an account solely in my name." Linda listened to me with a mixture of admiration and concern. "But Cecilia, where are you going to go? Do you have family in another city?" "I have a cousin in Dallas, Hope. We haven't spoken in 5 years, but I know she lives alone in a big house she inherited from her husband. I'm going to write to her. I'm sure she would take me in for a while until I get settled." It was true. Hope had always been different from the rest of the family. She was an independent woman who had never married or had children, and who had always told me she admired my strength. On the few occasions we spoke on the phone, she had hinted that if I ever needed a change of scenery, her house was open to me. "The plan is simple," I continued explaining to Linda. "On Sunday, when my children come, it will be the last time they see me. After they leave, you help me get out of the hospital. I'm not going to officially check out. I'm simply leaving. I'll leave the letter on my bed and disappear." "And your things, your apartment?" "I already talked to Fiona about this. She has a sister who's a lawyer, and she's going to help me make a power of attorney so you can take care of everything. You can sell my furniture, keep whatever you want, and use the money to pay what's left of the rent until the contract ends. I never liked the apartment anyway. It was too small, too sad." Linda remained silent for a long moment, processing everything I had told her. "Cecilia, are you sure about this? It's a very big decision. Once you leave, it's going to be very difficult to come back." "I don't want to come back, Linda. That's exactly the idea. I want my children to understand what it feels like to be abandoned by family. I want them to know what it's like to look for someone you love and not find them. I want them to live with the guilt of having lost their mother by choosing a party over her life." The words came out of me with a clarity and determination that surprised me. It was as if all these years I had been accumulating strength for this moment. "Besides," I continued, "I'm 66 years old, Linda. If I live to 80, I have 14 years left. Am I going to waste those years begging for attention from children who see me as an obligation? Or am I going to use them to see new places, make new friends, maybe even find the love I never allowed myself to have?" For the first time since I had started explaining my plan, Linda smiled. "You're right, my dear. You have every right in the world to be happy. And if they can't give you that happiness, then you need to find it somewhere else." "Exactly. And I need you to promise me something else, Linda. When my children come looking for you after reading the letter, when they beg you to tell them where I am, I need you to tell them you don't know, because you really won't know. I'm not going to tell you my exact address in Dallas until I'm completely settled, and sure, I don't want them to find me. Linda nodded with determination. I promise, Cecilia, but I want you to keep me updated on how you are, to call me at least once a week so I know you're safe and well. Of course. You're the only real family I have, Linda. You're the sister I never had, and the only person who truly cares about my well-being. We spent the rest of the morning planning the details. Linda would take care of contacting Fiona's sister for the legal papers. I would call my cousin Hope from the hospital phone to explain my situation. I also needed to withdraw my $8,000 from the bank and convert it to cash for the trip. You know what's the saddest thing about all this? I said to Linda as we organized the last details. That I'm more excited about this new life than about anything that has happened in the last 10 years. I feel like a teenager planning to run away from home. But instead of running away from controlling parents, I'm running away from ungrateful children. It's not sad, my dear. It's liberating. You've spent your entire adult life living for others. It's time for you to live for yourself. That afternoon, I called Hope from the hospital phone. Her voice sounded surprised, but genuinely happy to hear from me. Cecilia, what a nice surprise. How are you, cousin? Hope, I need to tell you something important. I'm going through a very difficult situation with my children, and I need to make a radical change in my life. Is your invitation from years ago to visit you in Dallas still open? She didn't hesitate for a second. Of course, cousin. This house is too big for me alone, and I'd love to have company. What's going on? Are your children okay? My children are perfectly fine, I replied with a bitterness I couldn't hide. So much so that they don't need their mother for anything. I'll tell you everything when I arrive, but I need to leave here as soon as possible. Come whenever you want, Cecilia. You have a room waiting for you here for as long as you need. When I hung up the phone, I felt as if I had just bought a ticket to freedom. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. I woke up at 6 in the morning with a mixture of anxiety and excitement that churned my stomach. It was my last day being Isaac and Benjamin's mother. Tomorrow morning, I would simply be Cecilia, a free woman starting a new life. Fiona noticed my nervousness as she checked my vital signs. You look very tense today, Mrs. Stone. Are you worried about something? On the contrary, honey, I'm excited. Today is the last day of a life that no longer serves me. During the morning, I mentally reviewed everything I had planned. Linda had withdrawn my $8,000 from the bank on Friday and had it stored at her house. Fiona's sister had prepared the power of attorney that would allow Linda to handle my legal affairs. My cousin Hope was waiting for my arrival in Dallas with open arms. Everything was ready. Isaac and Benjamin arrived exactly at 2 in the afternoon, as they had promised. After lunch, of course. Diana came with Benjamin, wearing a new coral-colored dress that probably cost more than I spent on food in 2 months. Mirella arrived 15 minutes later, apologizing because she had had to finish a super important work call. Mom, you look much better, Isaac said to me as he sat in the chair furthest from my bed. The doctor told us you'll probably be discharged this week. Yes, Mirella intervened. We said it was impossible for it to be as serious as the doctors had said. You've always been very strong, as if my strength were an excuse for their abandonment. And what plans do you have when you leave the hospital? Diana asked me with that false smile she had perfected. I hope you understand that with our work schedules, it's going to be difficult for us to visit you very often, but we can call you on weekends. Call me on weekends if they didn't have more important commitments, of course. In fact, Benjamin said, Diana and I were talking, and we thought it might be a good idea for you to consider moving into one of those senior living facilities, where there are 24-hour nurses and activities to keep you busy. A nursing home. They wanted to put me in a nursing home after abandoning me during my heart attack. There are some very nice ones, Diana continued, excited by the idea. We visited one last weekend just to check it out. It's very clean, the food looks decent, and it's not that expensive. It costs about $2,000 a month, but with your pension and a small contribution from us, it would be totally feasible. $2,000 a month, the same amount Diana's dress cost for her birthday party. Best of all, Isaac added, is that you'd be surrounded by people your age. You could make friends, play cards, participate in activities. It would be much better than being alone in that apartment where no one can take care of you if something happens. I remained silent, watching my two sons plan my life as if I were a logistical problem that needed solving. They weren't asking me what I wanted to do. They were informing me that they had decided for me. Besides, Marilla continued, it would be safer for everyone. If you have another medical emergency, the staff there could handle it without us having to abandon our jobs or important commitments. There was the naked truth. They wanted to ensure that the next time I was dying, they wouldn't be bothered during their important commitments. And when did you plan to implement this plan? I asked them, with a calm that surprised me. Well, there's no hurry, Benjamin said, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 months. That way you have time to get used to the idea, and we can save for the initial payment. 2 or 3 months. The time they gave me to prepare for my official exile. You know what? I said to them, feeling a strange smile forming on my lips. I think you're right. I think I need to make a radical change in my life. The 4 of them visibly relaxed, thinking I had accepted their plan. I'm glad you see it that way, Mom, Isaac said. It's going to be best for everyone. Without a doubt, I added. It's going to be best for everyone. They spent the next hour talking among themselves about the details of the senior living facility, about their work plans, about the vacations they were planning for next month. I was just a silent spectator of the conversation about my own future. Diana showed Marilla photos on her phone of the birthday party, that celebration that had been more important than my life. Look, this is the cake I ordered. Isn't it beautiful? It cost $300, but it was worth every penny. $300 for a cake, a quarter of what I spend on food in an entire month. And this is the dress Benjamin gave me, she continued, swiping to another photo. Isn't it divine? It's designer. It cost $1,200, but my husband says I deserve it. She deserved it. She deserved a $1,200 dress, but I didn't deserve them to come see me while I was dying. At 4 p.m, they began to make the typical farewell gestures. Marilla looked at her watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Diana yawned exaggeratedly. Benjamin obviously checked his phone. Well, Mom, Isaac said, standing up, I think it's time for us to go. We have dinner with Marilla's parents, and we don't want to be late. Dinner with Marilla's parents. Of course, they were in a hurry to leave. It's okay, dears. Go in peace. Each of them gave me a quick, superficial kiss on the forehead, the kind given out of obligation. Diana even wiped her lips afterward, as if my skin had left some unpleasant residue. We'll call you this week, Benjamin promised from the door. And we'll start researching more senior living facilities, Marilla added. Take good care of yourself, mother-in-law, Diana said with that false smile, and don't worry about anything. We'll take care of everything. They left, leaving behind the scent of Diana's expensive perfume and the echo of their empty promises. I was left alone in the room, looking at the door through which my children had just left. In a few minutes, Linda would come in to help me with the final phase of my plan. In a few hours, I would be on a bus to Dallas. By tomorrow, the hospital bed would be empty, and my children would be reading the letter that would change their lives forever. For the first time since the heart attack, I genuinely smiled. It wasn't a smile of happiness, but of liberation. It was the smile of a woman who had finally decided that her own life was worth more than the emotional comfort of ungrateful children. Fiona came in for the afternoon checkup. How do you feel after the visit, Mrs. Stone? I feel free, Fiona, for the first time in decades. I feel completely free. Free? Free from what? Free from the illusion that I am important to anyone other than myself. At 6 p.m, Linda arrived, punctual as always. She carried a small suitcase with clothes she had packed from my apartment and the $8,000 in cash. "Ready for your new life, my dear?" "More than ready, Linda. I've been waiting for this moment for years without knowing it." At 7 in the evening, as the hospital corridors began to empty and the night shift settled into its more relaxed routine, Linda and I put into motion the plan that would change my life forever. It was strange to feel so much adrenaline at 66 years old, as if I were a teenager running away from home instead of an older woman taking control of her own destiny. "Are you sure you want to do this, Cecilia?" Linda asked me one last time as she helped me get dressed in the clothes she had brought from my apartment. "Once we leave here, there'll be no turning back." "Linda, I've been 40 years without turning back. From the day I decided my children were more important than myself, I haven't had a way back. This is the first time in decades that I feel like I'm moving towards something, not running away from something." I put on the dark green dress I had bought last year but had never worn because Morella had commented that the color didn't suit me. Today it seemed perfect. It was the color of new hope, of a fresh start. Fiona came in at the exact moment we had coordinated. Her shift ended at 8, and she had agreed to help us with the most delicate part of the plan, leaving the hospital without an official record of my departure. "Mrs. Stone, are you ready for this? My sister is waiting for you in the parking lot with all the legal papers you need to sign." Ready as I've ever been for anything in my life. I took the letter from the nightstand drawer and placed it on the pillow, clearly visible. It was a white envelope with my children's names written in my neatest handwriting. It looked so innocent, so simple, but I knew those 4 pages would destroy the comfortable world they had built by ignoring my existence. "Linda, remember, wait until tomorrow afternoon to give them this. That way I have time to get to Dallas and settle in a bit before chaos breaks out." "I remember perfectly, my dear. Tomorrow at 5 in the afternoon, I'm going to Isaac's house and I'm going to give them the letter. And when they ask me where you are, I'm going to tell them exactly what you told me, that I don't know." We walked through the hospital corridors as if we were normal visitors, leaving after visiting hours. Fiona had been very smart to choose this time. There was enough movement of people so we wouldn't be conspicuous, but not so much that anyone would pay specific attention to an older woman with a small suitcase. In the parking lot, we were met by Sarah, Fiona's sister. She was a woman in her 40s with a serious but kind expression who extended her hand professionally. "Mrs. Stone, I'm Sarah Miller, attorney at law. My sister explained your situation, and I want you to know you have my full support. What you're doing requires a lot of courage." "Thank you, counselor. Do you have all the papers ready?" "Here they are. This power of attorney gives Mrs. Johnson complete authority over your financial and legal affairs in this city. She can sell your belongings, cancel contracts, handle any issues that arise. I also prepared this document certifying that you are mentally competent and that you are making this decision with full awareness of the consequences." I signed all the papers under the yellowish light of the parking lot, feeling that with each signature I moved further away from my previous life and closer to my freedom. "And if my children try to use these documents to declare me mentally incapacitated?" I asked. "Impossible," Sarah replied confidently. "I have witnesses. I have medical documentation that proves you are in full possession of your faculties. And I have evidence that this is a well-thought-out decision, not an impulsive one. Besides, you are an elderly adult with an absolute right to decide where and how to live." Linda accompanied me to the bus terminal. The taxi ride was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived, I bought a ticket on the night bus departing for Dallas at 10 at night. "It's a 12-hour trip," the terminal employee explained. "It arrives tomorrow at 10 in the morning." Perfect. By the time my children received the letter, I would already be 400 miles away, starting my new life. "Cecilia," Linda said to me as we waited in the waiting room, "I want you to know that I'm very proud of you. I don't know many women your age who have the courage to start from scratch." "I'm not starting from scratch, Linda. I'm starting with 66 years of experience, with $8,000 in my pocket, and with the certainty that I deserve something better than crumbs of attention." When my bus was announced, we hugged like the sisters we had become during all these years of friendship. Take good care of yourself, my dear, and call me as soon as you arrive so I know you're safe and well. I'll call you every week, Linda. You're the only real family I have left, the only person who has truly shown me that my well-being matters. I got on the bus with my small suitcase and my heart full of an emotion I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't exactly happiness, but something deeper. It was recovered dignity. I found my seat by the window, and as the bus pulled away from the city where I had lived all my life, I took out my phone to send one last text message to my children. I had decided during the trip to the terminal that I needed to send them something, not to explain my reasons. That was already in the letter, but so they would know that this goodbye was final. Isaac and Benjamin, by the time you read this, I will be far away. In my hospital bed, you will find a letter that explains everything. Don't look for me. This is my final decision. Be happy with your busy lives and your clear priorities. I will be happy without you, Cecilia. I sent the message and immediately turned off my phone. I didn't want to read their desperate replies, their attempts at emotional manipulation, their last-minute pleas. They had had a lifetime to show me they loved me, and they had chosen to show me the opposite. The bus continued along the night road, taking me mile by mile away from a life of unrecognized sacrifices and closer to a life of new possibilities. Through the window, I saw the lights of small towns passing by, houses where other mothers were probably having dinner with children who valued them, where other families said goodbye with genuine kisses and fulfilled promises. At 2 a.m, when most passengers were sleeping, I remained awake, thinking about everything I had left behind and everything that awaited me. I felt no sadness, no guilt. I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades: hope. My cousin Hope had told me on the phone that Dallas was a beautiful city, full of parks and markets, with perfect weather and warm people. Here you can start over, Cecilia. Here no one will know your story, and you can write a new one. Writing a new story. I liked that idea. For the first time in my adult life, I was going to be the protagonist of my own story, not a secondary character in my children's lives. The bus continued on its way, taking me toward my freedom. I arrived in Dallas at 10 a.m. on Monday, exactly as I had calculated. The sun shone with an intensity I hadn't seen in years, as if even the weather was celebrating my new life. My cousin Hope was waiting for me at the terminal with a smile that immediately reminded me of my mother, her aunt, who always said that true family wasn't the one who shared your blood, but the one who shared your pain and your joy. "Cecilia, what a joy to see you," she said, hugging me with a warmth my own children hadn't given me in years. "You look tired from the trip, but there's something different in your eyes, as if you left a very heavy burden somewhere along the way." "That's right, cousin. I left 40 years of burden in a hospital 400 miles from here." During the ride to her house, Hope told me about life in Dallas, about the markets where I could buy fresh vegetables for pennies, about the parks where women our age gathered every morning to exercise and socialize, about dance classes for seniors, about part-time job opportunities for experienced people. "Here, no one will judge you for starting over at 66, Cecilia. This city is full of stories of rebirth." Her house was exactly as she had described it. Large, full of light, with a backyard where roses, jasmine, and a lemon tree filled the air with fragrance. My room had a window overlooking the garden and a bed with white sheets that smelled of lavender. "This will be your home for as long as you need, cousin, and if you decide to stay forever, it will be an honor for me." That first afternoon, while Hope prepared a homemade meal that reminded me of my childhood, I received the call I had been waiting for. It was Linda. "Cecilia, I just delivered the letter. It was exactly as you imagined." "Tell me everything, Linda. I need to know how they reacted." I arrived at Isaac's house at 5 p.m, as we agreed. They were having a quiet family dinner. When I told them I had a letter from you, Mirella rolled her eyes and said, "It's probably another one of her dramatizations because we haven't visited her in 2 days." I laughed bitterly. Even my letters they considered dramatizations. But when Isaac started reading, his face completely changed. "Cecilia?" He went pale as a sheet. He started reading aloud, and everyone fell completely silent. When he finished, Diana screamed, "This can't be real!" "Mothers don't abandon their children." And Benjamin started dialing your phone desperately. "And what did you tell them when they asked where I was?" "Exactly what you asked me to. I told them I didn't know, that you had only asked me to deliver the letter and hadn't told me where you were going." Isaac became furious and yelled that it was impossible for me not to know anything, that we were very good friends, but I stood firm. "How did they look when you left?" "Devastated, Cecilia, but it wasn't sadness I saw on their faces. It was panic. The panic of realizing they had lost something forever and that it was their own fault." That night, lying in my new bed, in my new city, with the scent of jasmine wafting through the window, I received dozens of missed calls and text messages from my children. I didn't answer any, but I read them all. "Mom, please call us. We can talk about this." Isaac. "Cecilia, this is ridiculous. Mothers can't just disappear." Morella. "Mom, I understand you're upset, but this is extreme. Come back and we'll fix everything." Benjamin. "Mother-in-law, I think you're overreacting. We love you. We just have busy lives." Diana. The messages continued for days, becoming progressively more desperate, more pleading, more aware of the magnitude of what they had lost. "Mom, I went to the hospital and found your bed empty. The doctor said you left without being discharged. This is dangerous for your health, Isaac." "Please, Mom, at least let us know you're okay. We're very worried." Benjamin. "Cecilia, we've been thinking, and you're right about many things. We can change. Come back, please." Morella. But it was too late for changes. It was too late for regrets. They had had 40 years to change, 40 years to value me, 40 years to show me that my life mattered. I wasn't going to give them a second chance. 3 weeks after my arrival in Dallas, I had already established a routine that filled me with a peace I hadn't known in decades. I woke up early to walk in the park with a group of women my age who had welcomed me as if I were a lifelong friend. I had found a part-time job at a downtown boutique, assisting ladies who appreciated my experience and good taste. In the afternoons, I took painting classes at the Cultural Center, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for because I was too busy sacrificing myself for my children. "You look 10 years younger, Cecilia," Hope told me one afternoon as we painted together in the garden. "It's incredible what freedom can do for a woman." She was right. I felt reborn, as if the 66 years of sacrifice had been just a preparation for this new life, where I could finally be myself. A month later, I met Mr. Harrison in dance class. He was a 70-year-old widower, retired with kind eyes and an easy laugh. There was nothing romantic between us, but it was nice to have the company of a man who treated me with respect and admiration, who valued my conversation and my presence. "Cecilia," he told me one afternoon after dancing, "I don't know what brought you to Dallas, but I hope it was something good, because your arrival has definitely been something good for all of us." My children's messages had gradually decreased, from desperate to pleading, from pleading to angry, from angry to resigned. The last message I had received a week ago: "Mom, if this is what you really want, we respect it. We just want to know you're okay and happy. We've realized many things since you left, and you're right about everything you said. We hope someday you can forgive us, Isaac." Forgive them. Maybe someday I could forgive them, but I could never forget. And I would definitely never go back to being the mother who begged for crumbs of attention. 6 months after my arrival in Dallas, as I had coffee in the garden on a sunny morning, I reflected on everything I had gained by losing my children. I had gained dignity, self-respect, genuine friendships, new experiences, and the possibility of living my last years as I wanted to live them, not as others expected me to live them. My phone rang. It was Linda with her weekly call. "How are you, dear? You sound happier and happier." "I'm better than ever, Linda. Yesterday, I enrolled in a literature course at the university. Imagine, at 66 years old, I'm going to study something I always loved but could never do because I was too busy raising children who didn't value me. It makes me so happy to hear you like that, Cecilia. And them? Have you heard anything? I see them occasionally posting photos on social media. They continue with their busy lives, their important parties, their urgent commitments. The difference is that now I don't have to pretend I care. That night, as I wrote in the diary I had started keeping, I reflected on the bravest decision of my life. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of loneliness, moments where I missed the illusion of having a family that loved me. But those moments were becoming less frequent, replaced by the deep satisfaction of finally living for myself. Dear Diary, I wrote, today I turned 67. It's the first birthday I celebrate without expecting my children to call, without feeling disappointed by their indifference. Hope organized a small party for me with our friends from the park, and for the first time in decades, I felt genuinely loved and valued. This is the life I deserve. This is the life I should have always had. I closed the diary and looked out the window at the moonlit garden. Tomorrow would be another day of my new life, another day of freedom, another day of simply being Cecilia. Not the abandoned mother, not the sacrificed woman, but a complete woman living on her own terms. And for the first time in 40 years, that was more than enough. If you enjoyed my story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can write more stories like this. Thanks a lot in advance. What about you? What would you do in this person's shoes? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments. I'm always curious to know what you think. Oh, and let me know where you've heard this story. If you want to hear more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you. Big hugs, and see you next time.